Hi, this is Supernova. Dear Christian, I have a dilemma for you. From God's point of view, is His will more important or yours? I want you to think about that for a moment. Pause the video if you've got to. Justify it, reason it, rationalize it, and then I'm going to show you why, no matter what you answered, it's wrong. Today I'm talking about the problem of evil, which is an atheist's main argument against Christianity, and it goes like this. I'm going to read from the Greek philosopher Epicurus, who wrote about it so eloquently. He said, "Is God willing to prevent evil but not able? Then He is not omnipotent. Is He able but not willing? Then He is malevolent. Is He both able and willing? Then whence cometh evil? Is He neither able nor willing? Then why call Him God?" Basically, if you believe that God is all-powerful, He can do anything, and always good, He hates evil, then why is there still evil? If He can get rid of it and wants to get rid of it, what is He waiting for? Now, if you don't see God as always good and all-powerful, then this video isn't for you. Go somewhere else and go learn why theologians believe these two traits about God, because they answer other questions besides the problem of evil. But if you've got these, they seem contradictory with the state of the world. We wouldn't have evil if these two things were true about God. So Christians have come up with an answer for this called free will. And I'm going to explain in a moment why the logic behind free will is so obviously wrong. But before I get to that, let's think about this. Does God really care about your free will? Is it true what Christians say that He doesn't want automatons, that He wants you to be able to worship Him willfully? Well, the Bible doesn't seem to reflect this. We've got cases like the story of Jonah, who decided of his own free will that he didn't want to go to Nineveh, and so God coerced him into it by nearly killing him. We've got the case of Pharaoh, whose heart was hardened, and he didn't let the Jews go. And it sounds from that phrase, God hardened his heart, like God made the choice for him and took over his free will. And then we've got cases like heaven, where everybody worships God, nobody does evil, and it doesn't sound like free will's going on there, at least as far as we know. And if that's God's ideal world, then it doesn't seem that God respects free will at all. But it does seem to reflect the life we see. So I mean, it at least is a nice anecdotal answer. But there's one little problem with this. God has a will that you should not do evil, and you have a will that you should. Why does He let you have your way over His? If you answered that question at the beginning, that your will is more important than God's, then this makes sense, because even though He doesn't want you to do evil and you want to do evil, if your will is more important, then He would let you do evil. And that makes some rational sense too, because if God could just override any choice you made, then why bother giving you the choice to choose anything at all? And I think there's some substance to that argument. I think it's a perfectly valid argument. So keep that in mind, because it's a double-edged sword, and I'm going to come right back to that. There's another context where we talk about our will, free will, and God's will, and that is prayer. Now, the Bible says, "Ask and you shall receive," and it makes this very clear. It says that you know how to give good presents to people that you love, and if you who are evil know how to give good presents, then surely God, who's not evil, knows how to give better presents. There's nothing in the Bible that says, "Ask and you might receive." I mean, it's pretty clear. If you ask God for something, you'll get it. That seems to be His nature. Jesus, when He walked the earth, healed everybody who came to Him. Everybody. He never said, "No, it's my will that you shouldn't be healed." No, He healed everybody. And it seems like that would be the sort of thing that He'd still do if those stories were ever true and prayer worked. And prayer doesn't work. We've got so many studies that shows that it's statistically ineffective. It doesn't change anything. And so Christians, in their response to this, they rebut it by saying that if you're praying for something that's not in God's will, then you won't get it. You want that A in your algebra final at the end of the year, and you pray for it, and you don't get an A. It's not that God doesn't answer prayer, it's that He didn't want you to get an A. And I think the main problem with this is when you're looking at that contrast of God's will and yours, suddenly His will is more important? This seems to contradict itself. In the case of you doing evil, you sinning, God lets you. He says, yeah, you have free will, make your choice, and He doesn't interfere. And yet, when you ask Him for something, He says, well, you want it, but I don't, so you won't get it. Remember that argument that I made in the case of free will about how there's no point in wanting something if God's just going to override it anyway? What's the point in asking God for something if He's just going to override your will with His? There isn't any point. Why bother asking if He's never going to give you anything if it's not in His will? If it wasn't His will, He'd just give it to you. And people have noticed this before I have, but I mean, what's the answer here? Is God's will more important or yours? I mean, if these were inconsistent, you would think it would go the other way, that when you want to do evil, God would say, no, I'm going to step in. And when you're just asking for something that isn't evil, like an A on your algebra final, then God would say, yeah, sure. Why? Because that's good as we know it. That's love as we know it. I've got a 6-year-old daughter, and if she wants to go for a walk outside, and I'm not in the mood, I just want to hang around the house, we go for a walk outside. I mean, we may have different wills, but her will is more important than mine, because I love her, because I'm good. Maybe God should look into that. So I promised you an answer to why this free will argument isn't even logical, and, you know, I just love logic. Like a person with a hammer, everywhere he goes, he sees things as nails, and because I know so much about logic, I always see everything as a logic problem. But okay, so why doesn't free will answer the question? Well, because it sets limitations on God. Because free will still doesn't answer the question of God's omnipotence. If you can stop God by willing something against Him, then He can't do it. For instance, if you say, I want my sister-in-law to become a Christian, and God says, well, I would, but she doesn't want to become a Christian, she has to do it of her own free will, then we've come to something that God can't do. Even if you want to put it in the context of the semantical argument, God can do it, but He won't. Well, maybe you don't understand what won't means. It means that it's a self-imposed limitation as opposed to an outside limitation, but it's still a limitation. It's still something that God can't do, even if He's preventing Himself from doing it. So the free will argument is just another way of saying, yeah, there are things God can't do. He's not omnipotent. Case closed.